Mr. President, the United States Senate has just done the right thing. And in a matter of hours, hopefully, the decision to fund the government, to put people back to work, will find its way to the House of Representatives, and I'm sure that there it will find a quick agreement. And tomorrow, everybody will be back in place, and both the House and the Senate can work aggressively between now and February the 8th to make sure that this doesn't happen again and that we bring permanency and certainty to the funding. Mr. President, the Vice Chairman of the Intelligence Committee and I were notified when the House CR appeared that there was language in it that was different than in the past. And the language is in Section 148 of the CR, and it's of concern to the Intelligence Committee. And let me just read the language. Section 148, funds appropriated by the Department of Defense Missile Defeat and Defense Enhancement Acts, Appropriation Acts of 2018, Division B of Public Law 115-96, may be obligated and expended notwithstanding Section 504 of the National Security Act of 1947. Now, the language is troublesome for the committee because it would authorize the intelligence community to spend funds notwithstanding the law that requires prior authorization by the Senate Intelligence Committee or by the House Intelligence Committee. Now, the Vice Chairman and I were on the floor, I think, last week, and we had a 65 to 34 vote to reauthorize the most significant intelligence tool to keep America safe. And in that debate, both Senator Warner and myself said to our opposition that we would do everything within the committee's power to make sure that we did aggressive, real-time oversight over the entire intelligence community. Sometimes that means that when we see that there might be something we're uncomfortable with, we alter the ability to access funds. In congressional terms, we call that fencing off money. But we utilize the tools as an authorizer to affect what, in fact, individuals within the intelligence community can choose to do. Now, when you take away Section 504, authorities that the committees have, for the next 3 weeks, we will have an inability to exercise, in our estimation, the tools that we might need to keep our commitment to 34 individuals that still voted against us, but more importantly to the American people, that we would do everything to make sure that our intelligence communities acted in a way that those educated and elected in this body saw fit. So, as a result, this language could erode the powers of the authorizing committee. Effectively, the intelligence community could expend funds as it sees fit without authorization bill in place and with no statutory direction indicating that an authorization bill for 2018 is forthcoming. Let me just say to my colleagues, a situation like this is untenable. We've worked with our colleagues in HPSCI to develop language to change this. And I might say we've had a couple of opportunities to do it, and we should have done it literally when we changed the date of the CR. When we changed the date from the original date to the 8th of February, the 16th I think was the original, we should have inserted this new language. But because there's a fight between appropriators and the Intelligence Committee in the House, we weren't able to do that. And I have a feeling that Senator Warner and I are going to find that there's now a fight between the Intelligence Committees and the appropriators in the United States Senate. Because I fear somebody might object to the unanimous dissent I will ask after Senator Warner speaks. But let me read for you, Mr. President, what the committee has come up with. And this is bicameral. The House Senate, Select Committee on Intelligence is in agreement that in Section 148, it would say funds appropriated by the Defense Missile Defeat and Defense Enhancement Act, Appropriation Act of 2018, Division of Public Law 11596, for intelligence or intelligence-related activities are deemed specifically authorized by Congress for the purposes of Section 504 of the National Security Act of 1947, 50 U.S. Code 414, during fiscal year 2018 until the enactment of the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2018. Vice Chairman's a lawyer. I'm not. I really rely on the legal counsel that we have within the committee to interpret U.S. law. It really doesn't take a law degree to understand that there's a huge difference between ignoring Section 504, notwithstanding, or applying Section 504, which our change makes. So this isn't really a misinterpretation. This is a question of whether you want to take Section 504 of the National Security Act of 1947, 50 U.S. Code 414, and continue to let it apply, or whether you're going to provide the intelligence community a waiver that exempts them from having to adhere to part of U.S. code. And the reason that I wanted the opportunity to speak before we ask unanimous consent was I want my colleagues to understand we take our oversight role extremely serious. We want every tool in our basket that we can to give the American people the assurance that we know exactly what's going on and that we are at least in agreement that they proceed forward, not that they have a free rein only because they've been appropriated a pot of money because an executive request was made. It would be no different under the Obama administration or under the Trump administration. And I would encourage my colleagues not to object to it when I ask for the unanimous consent, because that's what we're here for. With that, I would yield to the Vice Chairman.
Mr. President.
Senator from Virginia.
Mr. President, I want to echo a number of the comments that my friend, the Chairman, the Senator from North Carolina made. 10 days ago, we asked for reauthorization of Section 702, and I came to this floor and advocated that this was a critically important tool. That part of the reforms of that legislation would even give us more insight into how that tool was used. But we said at that point, not only to those members who didn't agree with us on that, but to all of the members, and for that matter, the American people, that the Intelligence Committee would continue its vigorous oversight of that program and other programs. Being on the Intelligence Committee, at least until recently, has not been necessarily all that high attention and profile. We spend hundreds and hundreds of hours every month in a SCIF. And one of the things that I find so rewarding about the Intelligence Committee's work is on issue after issue, you couldn't tell who's a Democrat and Republican. We all take extraordinarily serious our oversight responsibilities. If this exemption is granted, you could potentially have an administration, any administration, go off and take on covert activities, for example, with no ability for our committee, which spends the time and has the oversight, to say time out or to say we actually disagree with that policy. So I've been very disturbed about the whole process that arose in the House, how this attempted to get slipped in. I hope, as well as the chairman, that no member would choose to object. And if they do choose to object, I hope they will be able to explain to the American public why they would want to remove the Intelligence Committee's ability to monitor, and then if we make a decision, withdraw funds if we don't agree, and have that ongoing tool that's one of the most key components of our oversight responsibility, why they would want to, in effect, give any administration, for that matter, a blank check. So again, my hope will be that no one will object to this request, that we will continue the policies that existed for as long as I've been on the committee, and that those of us on that committee will continue to take the responsibility of oversight very, very seriously, and will continue to do it in a bipartisan way. With that, I'll yield back to the chairman.
I thank the vice chairman of the committee. Mr. President, there are over 30-plus professional staffers that staff both sides of the Intelligence Committee. On each side, there's a staffer designated for each of the intelligence agencies in this country. And I would dare say today that they know their particular portfolio of intelligence agencies as well as the employees that work inside that agency. They're experts. They're tasked with that degree of knowledge. And layered on top of that are 15 members of the United States Senate that the leadership on both sides have asked to spend countless hours behind closed doors, as the vice chairman said, typically in a bipartisan fashion, to provide for every member and for the American people our certification that we agree with what the intelligence community is doing, that it lives within the letter of the law, that there is some congressional oversight on a constant basis in real time, assuring members and the American people of that accuracy. Why would you take away the tools that we have to actually hold them accountable? And I know that appropriators believe that this hinders their ability to spend money when we're in a continuing resolution period because of Section 504. I'm not sure that I interpret it the same way that they do. Just because an executive branch has asked for a pot of money, I've never considered that the committee couldn't go in because of a vehement disagreement with the way some of it's being spent and alter that. That altering means that on the part of 15 members, we have a hesitancy as to how it's being done. Neuter the committee, you neuter our oversight. So at this time, I would ask unanimous consent that the Burr Amendment to the amendment number 1917, which is at the desk, be considered and agreed to.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
Senator from Mississippi.
I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, it's my hope that we will come to our senses at some point in this process, and that this waiver to U.S. code will in fact not be in place. But I will assure on behalf of the Vice Chairman and myself to all our members, we will do the best to our ability, given the limitation that's placed on us, to hold the intelligence community accountable for everything that they do, and that we will be much more active in the future relative to the appropriations that find their way there, if in fact they're not going to provide us the tools to manage in a constructive way those things that the agencies choose to carry out. If I didn't have the number of individuals in members and in staff that are experts, I probably wouldn't be as confident. But these folks take it extremely serious because we know what's at stake. The trust that we have with our members and the trust we have with the American people. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I politely yield back, but with great disappointment.